We continue our team coverage into the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy in the United States. Sean Calebs is in New Jersey, where President Obama spoke today, telling residents the government is there to help.
Mike, all around me you can see some of the devastation that Barack Obama and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie got to see up close today. Their main focus, a return to some kind of normalcy. They want to see electricity restored to this entire state, as well as clean drinking water, and get schools reopened and kids back in those schools. Days of rain and heavy clouds finally gave way to a hint of sunshine along the beaches of New Jersey's famed Atlantic City. But it seemed to just make the damage from Hurricane Sandy easier to see. President Obama got his first up-close look at the widespread devastation from the storm that claimed scores of lives.
Our hearts go out to the families who have lost loved ones.
The Democratic president spent the day with New Jersey's Republican Governor Chris Christie. They've been harsh political rivals during this year's heated campaign. But for now, they've put their differences aside, focusing on the people who need help the most.
Governor Christie, throughout this process, has been responsive. He's been aggressive in making sure that the state got out in front of this incredible storm.
It's been a great working relationship to make sure that we're doing the jobs that people elected us to do. And I cannot thank the president enough for his personal concern and compassion for our state and for the people of our state.
The visit and cooperation means a lot to beleaguered residents.
It's to restore faith.
Michelle English and her fiance live across the street from the ocean.
You can see all the debris in the back here.
She says her husband is a third-generation Atlantic City resident. And even though she can't swim, being with him meant being close to the water. It got a little too close when Sandy roared ashore.
The waves, that was ridiculous. We saw like the white caps, from the, they came over the bulkhead. We could see all the white caps coming towards the house. So it was scary. It was pretty scary.
The aftermath speaks volumes. New Jersey Senator Frank Lautenberg was with some 200 or so people amid the rubble that used to be the city's boardwalk.
It's going to take a lot more money to restore this, but I don't hear anybody saying, how much will it cost? They're not asking that question, and they shouldn't be. Right now, we got to get things fixed.
Many here who risked everything riding out the storm still appear to be in a state of shock. Renee Perez carrying around a charred newspaper from 1978 that she saw flapping in a building that had collapsed and burned. What's it mean to you?
Well, it's going to remind me of what happened here. What scared me, I was nervous. My husband stayed home to keep the house all right.
The city remains a virtual ghost town. The array of casinos closed and silent. Only the clanging of heavy machinery trying to put sand back where it belongs breaks the quiet. But there is hope for the future.
We will not quit until this is done.
In the aftermath of devastation, people remember political promises. Think back to 2005, a few days after Katrina had leveled much of New Orleans. Then President Bush went to that city and said the federal government would not leave there until the people were whole again. To this day, people of New Orleans, many of them, believe that was a promise that President Bush did not keep. So you can bet that people here are going to remember what Barack Obama said today, and they are going to do their best to hold him to his word. Mike?
Sean Calebs in New Jersey for us. New York City is making every effort to return to normal after being slammed by Superstorm Sandy. But there remains a clear divide between those with and without services, and it all depends on where you live. Karina Huber has the latest from New York. Karina?
Mike, yes, a tale of two cities. That is the best way to describe Manhattan a few days after being hit by Superstorm Sandy. In the north of the island, you see the lights are on, restaurants and shops open for business. In the south of the island, a very different picture where the majority of its residents are without power, many of them having to rely on the city's shelters just to get by.
The Seward Park High School is usually filled with students. Now it's filled with evacuees. Humans and pets from lower Manhattan seeking shelter after being hit by blackouts and other disruptions caused by Superstorm Sandy. This mother and daughter have spent 2 nights in the shelter.
I had water before I went to bed, and when I woke up, there was no water. So I said, you better get out of here, and go somewhere.
Tay Kim, who has trouble sleeping, spent her first night in the shelter on Tuesday.
All kind of noise, somebody coughing, baby crying. But I say I have to go through. I cannot picking, you know. I'm appreciate people let me stay like this situation. So thank God, I love America.
Roughly 375,000 people were ordered to evacuate New York City's flood-prone zones, most of them in Lower Manhattan. More than 6,400 of them have sought haven in the city's shelters to get basic things like a bed and a warm meal. Most homes in Lower Manhattan are without power and lack hot water. Few restaurants or stores are open, and modes of communication like the internet and cell phone service are down for many. Joaquin Logan says he's never before experienced anything quite like this.
Like this? No, never. This is the first. This is the first, and hopefully, Mother Nature, will be the last,
Uptown feels a world away. Apple's flagship store on Fifth Avenue was packed on Wednesday. The restaurants were open for business. There were virtually no cell phone disruptions, and there was a sea of lights. Superstorm Sandy has made a clear divide between the haves and have-nots. But many of Manhattan's poshest areas like Tribeca and the West Village are in the have-not category. Sandy may be brutal, but she does not discriminate.
And that divide between upper and lower Manhattan will widen tomorrow. That's because the northern part of the city will see subway service restored, whereas the south will not and will likely remain in the dark until this weekend. Mike?
Karina, let's talk a little bit about that. I'm from Los Angeles originally. I got to tell you, everybody out there has a car, but all my friends in New York and the suburbs in New Jersey and Connecticut, they all get around on the subways or trains or buses. It had to have a crippling effect on a lot of these folks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every New Yorker I know does not have a car, unlike California. We all rely on public transportation, most notably the subway system. 5.5 million New Yorkers, in fact, use the subway system every day to get in and out from the outer boroughs. So the fact that we really saw that shut down caused major delays on the streets, many people walking to work if they could, others having to rely on taxis. We saw a lot of carpooling going on, as well as some of the buses. But because so many people had to rely on cars and some of those tunnels were still not working, we saw 2-hour delays. So very hard to get into work today. Mike?
You know, you've had a couple of days to absorb all of this, Karina. What's the most striking aspect of all of this for you, would you say?
Well, I would really have to say the divide between the haves and have-nots. I'm lucky. I have power. I live on the Upper West Side, so I've got a lot of my friends who live downtown who've been coming over, taking showers, and they just feel so disconnected from the rest of us. They don't have television. They can't really see what's going on. They don't have access to their cell phone service is down, so they're really unaware of what's going on. So you really sense that there are people who are in a much better situation than others. All
right, Karina Huber, live for us in New York. Thanks so much. On Wednesday, many in Manhattan try to return to their usual routines. Power still out for many New Yorkers, as you just heard. Subways remain closed. It could be weeks before the city is back to normal, but across the bay in Staten Island, the impact of the storm is staggering. The level of destruction, alarming, with lives lost and entire sections of homes destroyed. Natalie Feary has that report for us.
Loss of lives, entire homes ripped apart. Families left with nothing and nowhere to go. Staten Island, just 10 miles from Manhattan, felt the full wrath of Cyclone Sandy. Police had to wait 2 days for the floodwaters to subside to search for the bodies of 2 small boys swept from their mother's arms as they tried to flee when the superstorm crashed onto land. The car they were in pulled from a ditch on Wednesday.
We knew it was going to be bad, but would we ever think it would be this bad? No, it's just the audacity of what Mother Nature can do.
Cars were propelled across streets as Father Capodanno Boulevard was transformed into a raging river as the waters of the Atlantic Ocean smashed through the neighborhood. An enormous shipping tank thrown onto a car. Furniture hurled from one room to another by the monster tidal surge that gushed through houses. Those who heeded the mandatory evacuation warning returned to find utter devastation. All their belongings totally destroyed.
It's crazy. Can't believe it. I feel like crying now, to tell you the truth.
In the aftermath, neighbors sorted through the debris, trying to salvage what they could of their most cherished possessions. Some may never be able to return home.
Inside my house is darkness. We have no power. I have no art material. I'm an artist and I have nothing. It's in sludge. It's dark, it's murky.
The community, reeling from the horrifying natural disaster, now waits for help and grows increasingly concerned about potential gas leaks, exposed electrical wires, sewage contamination and thefts. One family who tried to ride out the storm had to swim through a window and climb onto the second floor of a neighbor's house to survive as the storm pulled their house from its foundations.
Honestly, yeah, our house is obviously destroyed, and I mean, we lost our pets, but just the fact that the three of us managed to stay safe, the worst that happened was I skinned my knee. So we just feel so lucky, so lucky.
While many parts of Manhattan start to crawl back to life, here on Staten Island, police search operations continue, and the community is coming together to try to cope with some of the worst destruction and devastation they have ever felt. Natalie Ferry, CCTV, New York.
We focused on New Jersey and New York, but this storm wreaked havoc in more than 20 U.S. states. In West Virginia, the major impact isn't flooding or destruction of homes. Instead, it's a dramatic blizzard. Our correspondent Daniel Wrenches reports from the scene of this highly unusual weather event.
This is the aftermath of one of the worst October storms in living memory for the people of Elkins, West Virginia. And because it was tropical, one of the strangest.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I guess it's the cold front hit the tropical storm from the south, brought up all the water, and then the cold front, of course, turned it into snow. And within, I don't know, 15, 20 miles of here, it's just rain, or maybe only 2 inches of snow. It's just on the high mountain ridges where we got so much, and it was so devastating.
It took only a few hours for knee-high snow to blanket this section of the Appalachian mountain chain and cause chaos.
Most of the trees have fallen right across the lines. You can see a lot of the main power lines are broken in two, so they'll have to rerun all of those.
Are we safe right now? Because we're almost under it.
Well, I feel safe. I've been under them all day, but I wouldn't hang out under any big trees with a lot of snow on them.
This is a scene with this tree stretched up over this road that's been repeated across countless miles around the area where this blizzard has hit. But the problem is not this snow. The problem is the fact that these trees have been bringing down the power lines, cutting off power to many thousands of residents and homes, and making it difficult to see when those electricity supplies are going to be returned, because many of these power lines are in such remote, mountainous, tree-lined areas that it's going to be difficult for emergency services to be able to cut away and get to restore power. So some are wondering whether it could be several weeks before they see that returned. This is Daniel Wrenches for CCTV in Elkins, West Virginia.